With the Earth revealing its hidden mysteries every now and then, and people pulling out strange things from its depths frequently, there are things which boggle our minds and intrigue our souls.
Oh my God! Look at that!
From shocking discoveries to rare finds, peculiar stuff to unpredictable encounters. Some sinking down, some drifting on the land. Hang on, as here are some of the most shocking things caught by people on camera. Dinosaur tracks. Remaining a forever mystery, dinosaurs continue to intrigue people. A fossilized structure, a single bone, and sometimes even a footprint could be a fascinating discovery. But the people of Scotland were left stunned when archaeologists discovered the giant foot tracks of dinosaurs in the island of Skye, which belonged to two different species of dinos. One was of a theropod, which was present some 230 million years ago.
So we're walking now, and if you look, you can start to see these 3 toes from the theropod.
The other one belonged to the massive sauropods, which by the looks of the tracks were estimated to be 2.1 meter tall young dino. And with almost 50 more tracks found along these two, the scientists are quite hopeful that these discoveries will help them in understanding the prehistoric era and its animals. Elephant rescue. Alright, this discovery is definitely gonna shock you guys, as not the tusks nor the skull, but a man was shocked when he spotted a huge elephant stuck in the muddy puddle who slipped while drinking water from the pond. And not just one, but there was another, which was completely dehydrated and needed an immediate rescue. Therefore, reaching there immediately and starting the mission, they safely pulled out the two from the muddy trap, which no doubt was a heck of a task, as it could have easily wounded the two mammoths. And this man here made an epic discovery in a garbage dump when he spotted the fossilized shell of the oldest turtle ever present on Earth. But that was not all. As searching again in the abandoned area, he found the fossils of dinosaurs and even shark teeth in the rocky bottoms of the lands. Largest ancient turtle. Where Aldabras with a maximum length of 1.2 meters are considered the longest turtles, this fossilized turtle found in Spain was what shocked everyone, as it had broken the previous records and was measured to be 2.4 meters long, which made it the largest turtle to have ever roamed the planet Earth, and the oldest one too, as it was present some 11 million years ago. But don't consider this as the end of the wonders from the prehistoric turtle. When they reached the research center, the scientists noticed the different texture of its shell, as it had a horn-like texture of the shell, which they considered a significance of the male turtles back then, and it must have protected them during predators' attacks. Ancient mammoth tusks. Assumed to have roamed the Earth some 3,000 years before, even the tiniest discovery from the eras of these giant animals is valuable for scientists. One such discovery was made by a man in Yakutia, a region of Russia where he salvaged a mammoth's tusk. But while extracting evidence from the past, when the mammoth creatures wandered on the planet, unfortunately, where the paleontologist unearthed the mammoth skulls buried under the soil, he also discovered some unseen disasters, including the scattered bones and broken skulls. He had also found some shattered bones left by ivory hunters, as hunting and selling of the ancient animals' remains is a common practice in this part of the world, which, even though is strictly prohibited, is continued for many years and is destroying crucial evidence for scientists. Saved horse. Using wires, ropes, and anything which came into their hands, these people are determined to pull this horse out of the deadly trap. Losing all their hope in the beginning, as the hind legs of the horse were stuck deep in the mud, it was almost impossible to push them out of it with just a single wire. Therefore, they came up with another plan, and that was to drag the horse with the help of some more ropes and a truck to pull it out. Spending almost half their day, these people were finally able to rescue the horse alive. And here's another horse whose owner did not leave her during the whole rescue mission and came out of the mud along with her precious horse. Sloth fossils. This group of researchers dove into an underwater cave in Varadero, Cuba, looking for signs of life. and what they discovered blew their minds. The team ventured deep into the submerged cave and found massive skulls and bones belonging to extinct sloths that date back a few thousand years. Not only is this discovery rare, but so is the location itself. Underwater caves with extinct fossil remains aren't as common as you'd think. But this isn't the only sloth discovery that happened. Another set of extinct sloth remains were discovered in, not the ocean, but the city of Los Angeles, California. That's right, the city that's bustling with life contained more than a few hundred fossil remains. Who knows what else lurks under our feet? Elephants' tusks. The soil we walk on is full of secrets, as proven by this amazing archaeological find. A team of archaeologists dug out a surprisingly intact mammoth tusk, measuring 8 feet and dating back at least 500,000 years. The mammoth tusk is the biggest fossil tusk found in the Near East, and probably comes from a mammoth weighing a whopping 150 kilos. Another tusk was discovered by private researcher and archaeologist Miles Martin somewhere in Alaska. He also found a mammoth skull nearby. The two tusk discoveries were made over 5,000 miles apart, suggesting the mammoths weren't really restricted to a single habitat. Mammoth skeleton. It seems our mighty Earth is full of mammoth remains, since another skeleton was discovered, only this one belongs to the Russians. The discovery was made by a team of excavationists in a Siberian lake bordering the Arctic. The team found ribs, leg bones, and parts of the skull belonging to a woolly mammoth that they believed walked the Earth at least 10,000 years ago. But this isn't even the most amazing part of the discovery. The leg bones still contain soft tissue, which can hint toward the mammoth's age, size, and even health. Soft tissue finds are rarer than fossils themselves, since most naturally decay over time. And here, an exceptionally preserved tusk set was found in Mexico, shocking locals who didn't expect woolly creatures to be lying just feet below the ground. Valley of Whales. Sea creatures seem to have formed a bond with the desert. The Wadi al-Hitan, or Valley of the Whales in Fayum, Egypt, is named so because it hoards hundreds of whale fossils. The first whale fossil was discovered in the 1980s when paleontologists excavated the valley. The first few excavated whale fossils included legs and knees, an astonishing characteristic exclusive to prehistoric whales. Modern whales don't have prominent legs and knees, so the Wadi al-Hitan tells us a lot about the history. People have found similar relics in different areas of the world, but none of them were as preserved and intact as the ones found in the Wadi. Baby elephant rescued. Trapped with its head facing downward and not being able to observe what was going around, the poor baby elephant was living the worst moments of his life. It happened in Sri Lanka when an elephant accidentally fell into a 5-meter-long well and was stuck between the concrete walls. But dealing with the difficulties, the villagers started with smashing the walls of the deep well, and luckily, the efforts paid off as the baby elephant returned to the surface safe and sound. Dinosaur fossils. Dinosaurs are easily one of Mother Nature's biggest mysteries. We can only imagine how they lived and died, but recent fossils are giving us major clues. One of these examples is of the ichthyosaur, a ferocious marine reptile that swam the ocean 250 to 90 million years ago. This particular part of an ichthyosaur was found by a team led by none other than the infamous David Attenborough, who is still in search of more fossils. But let's talk about other dinosaur remains, like the ones found by construction workers in Alberta in 2011. The workers recovered the upper half body of a nodosaur, which now lies in the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology. The nodosaur is considered the best dino fossil thanks to its extraordinary state. Muddy prison. Something unimaginable happened when this group of 18 horses stopped to take a sip from a muddy lake in China, but ended up stranded. The horses were completely covered in mud, which further restricted their movements. Unable to do anything, the horses had completely given up until the arrival of the firefighters. The heroic firefighters had rushed to the scene after being alerted by a local and quickly got to work. It's lucky the firefighters got there in time, because most locals had no idea how to save the horses, and some even attempted to pull the animal by tying its neck. Such attempts are rarely successful and can even strangle the horse, so it's a relief the firefighters were able to pull them out safely. Long-necked dinosaur. Take a look at this long-necked dinosaur that was found almost a decade ago in Patagonia, an Argentinian region known for fossil finds. The dinosaur was classified as a type of sauropod, whose long necks helped them eat tree leaves. The fossil found 9 years ago had no name until now. A group of paleontologists have finally named the dinosaur Chicorosaurus diripiendra, after digging out another set of remains a few days ago. The recent Chicorosaurus remains included parts of the forelimb, hind limbs, and a femur bone measuring almost 2 meters. These fossils are the biggest recovered from the Argentine region and hint to the dinosaur's actual size. To think these massive creatures were once wandering the earth is a scary thought, but hey, at least they didn't have a thirst for humans, right? Abandoned impala. We don't give enough credit to wildlife park rangers and helpers, but this clip will show you how hardworking they are. A poor impala was left stranded when it sank in the ground after attempting to run across some muddy terrain in the Huanghe National Park. The impala's pleas for help were finally answered after a helper working with the park jumped in the mud himself tied to a rope. You can see how difficult it must have been for the worker, who is struggling to reach the impala. For a moment, you even think the effort's gone down the drain, but he finally comes closer and is able to set the impala free. Mummified croc. The Egyptian town of Kom Ombo near Aswan is famous for the several mummified bodies of crocodiles, each dating back centuries. The Egyptians' love for mummification is nothing new, but why do it to crocs? Historians estimate the mummified crocodiles pay respect to the crocodile gods and goddesses. Considering the Egyptians had a lot of omens, we'll believe this kept them safe. Most of the mummified crocodiles unearthed from Kom Ombo rest in the Crocodile Museum, but one particular specimen lies far away in the British Museum. This specific crocodile is quite unique, for it carries 2 to 3 crocodile hatchlings on its back, meaning it's not only a mummy, but a mama too. Stranded calf elk. Many hunters set out to capture a beast, but sometimes these animal hunters go in very unprecedented directions. A group of hunters ventured towards an icy spot in Wyoming, but switched character when they found an elk trapped in an ice water ditch. The elk initially refused help, perhaps she'd sensed they were hunters, but eventually gave in and allowed them to pull her out. A similar situation happened in Alberta, where an elk calf was trapped in mud. The calf had been separated from its mother, who was nowhere to be seen. This wasn't an unusual sight, since most calves become independent quite early, but this poor calf was gradually sinking toward the river. Luckily, responders took control of the situation and were able to pull the baby elk calf out. Preserved monkey. Mummies don't have to be 1,000 years old. Some mummies are quite young, and I mean as young as only a few decades old. Like this preserved monkey, which was found in China in the year 2016. Initially believing it to be a great find, which can open the doors of history, they were disappointed during the examination, as it turned out to be only some years ago, and further investigation revealed that it was actually being smuggled because of its significance in the hunting world, which is mainly because of the rarity of gray langurs in the region. Where the previous one turned out to be from the latest era, this one was discovered by a family in downtown Minneapolis when, during the renovation of their house, they came across this preserved mummy that was supposed to be at least a century old and was sent to researchers for further examination. Ancient bones. Pompeii, being one of the world's most explored archaeological sites, took archaeologists by surprise when they discovered a well-preserved human skeleton submerged into the floor. The skull was stuck under a massive slab, which archaeologists believe is what killed the poor soul in the first place. It's also possible the slab was part of a door that came unhinged. Researchers theorized the man fell prey to the slab's weight while attempting to flee the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. A careful analysis of the skeleton shows the man had an infection in his tibia, which could have made it difficult for the man to run away properly. Trapped tuskers. Caught by the wet sands, some people found a baby and mama elephant stuck in a muddy well in Kenya. The pair of elephants was practically drowning in the mud, which was so thick that first responders could do nothing but watch for 2 days. But don't shed your tears, because this troubled pair's pain lasted only a short while. A team of rescuers from Sheldrick Wildlife Trust quickly made its way to the spot, where they spent a few hours trying to free the elephants. After a few sedative shots to calm the mother and baby, and with the help of lifting vehicles, the team emerged successful. Ostrich eggs. Archaeologists in an abandoned area of Nitzana, a small village in Israel, have discovered a hearth. But it was not just a hearth, it was a significant fireplace with well-preserved ostrich eggs buried close to the surface. Surprised by their find, archaeologists began the research on the specific area and unearthed 8 more prehistoric eggs, which, compared to the usual ones, were 25 times bigger, and some were 4,000 years old. According to the archaeologists, the eggs did not only serve as a medium of food for the ancient people, but they have also unearthed some old bowls, jewelry, and even funerary tools being made of the ostrich shells, which indicates the importance of this single bird among the ancient people. Giant sea dragon. Limiting dragons to only myths, such discoveries are what renew the people's beliefs. And this is exactly what happened here, when the water conservation team, during the routine procedure, accidentally discovered the spine and jaw bones of a prehistoric sea creature. Which, not just for people, but was an incredible discovery for archaeologists as well, as the fossilized structure was 10 meters long and was identified as an ichthyosaur, a creature which has lived some 180 million years ago in the seas. Ichthyosaur was believed to have a long, flexible body and an eel-like swim. But that was not all from the discoveries. They also unearthed a 1.9 meter long skull of a giant creature later during the search, which made it the largest ichthyosaur skeleton ever found. Megalodon remains. Buried deep in the sandy landscape of the Atacama Desert was something so unexpected that paleontologists could not believe his eyes. He pulled out a megalodon tooth that barely fit his hands. For those who don't know, the megalodon, or meg, was the world's largest shark that roamed the oceans around 3.6 million years ago. So how did an extinct shark's tooth end up in the desert? Researchers theorize the Atacama Desert was once part of the ocean, which receded over the course of a few million years due to Earth's movement. They suggest the meg died over the ocean bed, but gradually moved upward due to earthquakes. Well, whatever the reason, it sure is an interesting find. Another meg tooth was discovered in a desert near Baja, Mexico. How the meg tooth reached the desert is anyone's guess, but most people support the tectonic movement theory. The guy ventured out to the desert in search of such fossilized remains, and luckily, it all worked out. Rhino in mud. Perhaps Mother Nature has something against animals, as it's constantly finding ways to trap them in mud. If you don't believe me, simply take a look at this video of a black rhino that was confined to a horrifying mix of wet mud slurry. The rhino was unable to move as he'd fallen into a dried watering hole, and the mud was too thick to steer through. The poor rhino had to endure several hours of anguish as the rescuers weren't unsure what to do. Attempts at tranquilizing and even uplifting the animal were rejected because the rhino could charge at the rescuers any moment. Eventually, rescuers decided to use a digger to remove the surrounding mud. The technique worked, and the rhino was able to run to freedom. Buffalo family. Kruger National Park helpers had to drop everything to rescue a buffalo family that had gotten stuck in a dirty trench. The ditch was quite deep, so the mud-caked buffaloes kept slipping away when trying to escape. The rescue crew had to get down on their stomachs and tried to pull the buffaloes one by one, but this only worked for the calves. The team finally decided to use their car to gradually and softly pull the remaining buffaloes. The entire rescue took well over half a day. The rescuers got the shock of a lifetime when one of the buffaloes charged at their vehicle after being saved. Oh well, maybe Mother Nature's grudges aren't that silly after all. Baby elephant. Another tear-jerking incident took place 4 years ago in Thailand, where 6 baby elephants were trapped in a mud pit. The baby elephants were partially submerged several feet under the mud, and crawling out wasn't an option because of the high wall. Locals spent 5 hours makeshifting a pathway for the baby elephants, who finally managed to wriggle out. A mother-baby elephant pair was recently trapped in a 7-foot deep hole near a Thai golf course. There was a rainstorm that night, and it had pushed the duo into the hole, knocking out the mother elephant, whose baby remained close out of fear. The grueling effort of a rescue team managed to free the two after administering tranquilizer and even CPR on the mother. But this shows how elephants and muddy terrains just don't get along. Stuck buck. Spotting a buck half drowned in the muddy ditch, the guys instantly knew what to do, and that was to release the poor animal from its misery, which was not an easy task as much as adjusting the strap around its antlers. Though the guys got it right, they were not sure if the plan would work, or they would end up wounding the already suffering buck. But after a few attempts, fortunately it did work, as the buck safely came out of the muddy pit and went back into the wild. Drowning deer. Trapped in the shallow water, about to drown in the deep, the deer was captured trying to get into the riverbank. But tired of trying and still not able to do so, it was desperately waiting for some help when it finally came. It happened near a farmer's land in Assam. Therefore, putting his life at stake, the farmer was captured approaching the deer, and then crossing the river, crossing the muddy area, he single-handedly saved the poor animal by carrying it on its back. But even though this one was saved, there have been many cases of the deers accidentally falling in the river water as it flows, and then not being able to make it, drowning in the river. Mummified animals. Digging deep down in the desert of Saqqara, the archaeologists knocked on the door of an ancient tomb, and that's where they found the perfectly preserved pharaonic age cats and scarab beetles, all of them covered in layers of oil, cinnamon, and cloth, and exquisitely mummified. Where the cats represent the Egyptian culture of worshipping them, and therefore adding them in the funerary practices to symbolize higher status, the scarab beetles have been declared as a unique find because research reveals that the Egyptians consider them a vital element while burying the pharaohs. And here, inside another tomb, falcons, cats, and even crocs, researchers have found a whole cache of mummified animals in Egypt. But the discovery which left them scratching their heads was a huge scarab beetle. Not just huge, but the world's largest scarab. The scarab was lined in linen and was carefully placed in limestone, which indicates towards the ancient Egyptians considering it a good omen for the dead, as indicating rebirth that would help them in the afterlife. Buried bison skull. Unearthing the massive skull while they were melting permafrost in Yukon, Canada, the team came across a massive bison skull, which was still frozen. Therefore, not melting at first, the archaeologists tried to carefully extract it from the permafrost. Why? Simply because they didn't want to destroy the DNA of the incredible skull, which could tell them more about the adaptation of animals and climate change at the time. Digging some more, the researcher believed that the horn spread of ancient bison was easily more than 1 meter, and assuming from its tusk, the prehistoric bison weighed more than the average bison. Buried in groundhog hole. Stumbling upon a hole, the man was shocked when he spotted a fawn stuck inside it. Remaining inside the small hole for too long, the fawn was desperate and crying for help. Therefore, utilizing anything which came in their hands, they started the rescue, which exceeded to a whole hour. Because even though they tried different methods, they were struggling to pull out the legs, which were badly trapped inside. But finally, the efforts worked, and the poor animal was saved by the people. Bear crying for help. Not being able to move even an inch due to the deadly leash wrapped around its neck, the bear cub was crying for help. Reached by the rescue team, the bear was then tranquilized because it was already enraged by the wire around its neck and it refused to cooperate. Thus, sedating it actually worked, and releasing the leash, they took the bear to a safe spot and sent the bear back into the wild. Flying cow. During their summer sojourn at approximately 2,000 meters height, a dozen of the cows in Switzerland's alpine meadows slipped and got injured during the visit and were stranded on the mountain until there was a team of rescuers who spotted the abandoned cows and immediately sent a chopper to help them. Therefore, tied with a strong base and flying through the mesmerizing Swiss meadows, all of the 12 cows were safely returned to the remaining herd, which consisted of about 1,000 cows. Baby deer in river. Desperately swimming towards the people and seeking help, the fawn needed protection. Initially just sending it back into the wild, they were shocked when it approached them again after a few days, and that's when they realized the poor animal was orphaned and needed care. Contacting the animal sanctuary, though, they handed over the fawn to them. It took them several weeks to get the deer baby back on its feet. As completely dehydrated, it was facing difficulties in walking. But luckily, it started a quick recovery and is now living with a fellow orphan deer in the facility. Elk in pit. Staying in the pit for almost 5 hours, the elk lost all its hopes of coming out. It happened in Sawash County, where a local man reported about the trapped elk in the muddy pit. Therefore, swiftly arriving there, though the police started the efforts to drag it out, being stuck there for several hours, the elk's legs were frozen, which made it even harder, because the more it tried to get out, the more it was pulled down. So, joining the rope with the car, they brought it out. And here it is, safe and sound, standing on its feet. Often coming around things that no one could ever expect. This time, the archaeologists unearthed a bizarre creature. Considering it a naturally preserved prehistoric mammoth's body, which in fact turned out to be true, it was the weird features which shocked them to their cores. As usually containing a single one, this mammoth had 2 trunks, and with no tracks of such a creature being present in history, it was no doubt an odd find. But where there's a majority of people who believe in it being an absolutely strange discovery, some of them believe that the picture actually shows the rescue of a giant elephant, which was trapped in the mud, as there have been many cases of elephants being stuck there. However, nothing could be said for sure, as there's no evidence present for the picture on the internet. So, a prehistoric monstrous animal, or just a simple rescue? Let me know what you guys think of the image. Stranded moose. Literally waiting for a miracle to happen, the moose with a broken log on its back was sinking in the small but deep muddy pit. When searching for antlers in the woods, a couple of guys made a shocking discovery as they spotted the moose, and the only solution which came to the rescuer's mind was to chain it and pull it out from the mucky hole. But carrying out an estimated 500-pound mighty moose was no easy task, and took them several tries before they could actually bring it out.